Hello, everybody.
Yo, hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
I can.
There
we go.
How's it going, Andrea?
It's going. It's going. Should I put my headphones on, or is this okay?
No, you're fine. You're good.
How are you feeling?
I have definitely had better days. I've had like on and off fever and cough, and this is like the most energy that I will have expended over the last 3 days. So it's all good though. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
There she is.
Hey
guys. Hi, Karis.
Hello, Andrea.
So I guess first I'll say welcome to our special live episode of the BPD bunch. Great question. So someone just asked what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is whatever y'all want to talk about. So this is your opportunity to ask us your questions, and I will go for as long as my voice can, but Karis and Andrea are more than qualified to answer. So, well, okay, so the first question is about meds. About Lamictal. Has anybody taken Lamictal?
Is that lamotrigine? No, it's not.
No, Lamictal is, well, so first we got to give the disclaimer that none of us are medical doctors, and so anything that we talk about related to medication is only going to be our personal experiences, and absolutely should not be taken as
I'm on it.
medical advice.
We are not.
I'm not a doctor, but I am on that.
I've been on Lamictal before. It gave me headaches. I didn't like it. If I'm not mistaken, it's generally prescribed as what I was told by my doctors, it's generally prescribed as an anti-seizure medication, but can be used as a mood stabilizer. I don't know if that's actually true, but I didn't like it. It gave me headaches, but it sounds like
Yes. Yeah, I take it. I actually just finally reached the highest dose maybe about a month ago. I take it at night, and the only thing I've received from it is incredibly vivid dreams. That's it. It's really intense, but sometimes they're kind of scary, but sometimes they're amazing. I'm just like, wow, that was a great dream.
Andrea, do you normally dream without it?
Not like that.
Because I honestly, this is very strange. I haven't had a dream in I don't know how long.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Remember the last time that I had a dream. And so I'm wondering maybe if it would be like if I started it, like I wonder if I would just like get dreams, because that would be kind of cool, because having dreams.
Yeah, no, they're very vivid. I saw the question about memory loss. I haven't experienced memory loss. I would say the only thing that I've gotten is just these dreams. Like they're very realistic. Like there was actually a time that I woke up thinking that me and my old friend were actually still friends. Like I was like, wow, talking about my friend David, and I was just like, oh, that was cool. And I was like, oh, that didn't really happen. Hold on, I'm gonna get the dogs out of the room.
So for anyone that's just joined, we are answering random audience questions, and we've been going a little outside of our wheelhouse and talking about some of our medication experiences. So I'm glad someone else has asked another question. How long did you guys go through therapy to see a noticeable change? I've only just been diagnosed, and I feel like my life is falling apart quicker than I can learn how to cope. I feel like my answer is not a helpful one, because I was in and out of therapy since I was 13, and I didn't get better until 2017. So that's like a long time. But I also didn't know that I had BPD and didn't get like good help until then.
Effective.
So maybe somebody else has a more helpful answer.
I feel like mine is kind of similar, Zanny, to yours, your story. I have been in and out of therapy since I was 15, and I had my worst struggles as far as like the most challenging years for me with my BPD as an older adult. So like when I was in my like probably late 30s, early 40s, some of my like hardest times. So I was in therapy, but I feel like my therapy wasn't effective because we weren't treating the right thing. It was more just like I was talking to her about like what happened that week and how I was handling it and like a couple of past traumas, but I didn't really end up with any skills. So it wasn't until I took a program, a DBT program, and I actually learned practical things that I could change in my life, like just easy little things that I could do that made a huge difference. And that's when I started to get better. But it wasn't until I actually had like something practical that I could put into place in my life and make change that affected more wellness.
Yeah, I think I would say basically, I'm glad that you said that because I was like, my mushy brain is trying to come up with the right things, but you basically covered it. I think it was like I started seeing some change like within a couple of weeks of actually implementing things that were helpful, like to see real lasting change where like I noticed I was implementing skills without thinking about it. Probably took like a year and a half before it was just happening automatically. But I found that as soon as I was really working the program, I've said this in another live, but like I think a big thing to be aware of is like if you're waiting for therapy to change you, you will be waiting a long time. You have to use the therapy to change yourself. And I think that was what really took me a long time. I wasn't really, since I'd been sort of a therapy kid, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like people were like, go talk to this person and it will help. And it didn't really do anything. And I was like, what is this supposed to do? You know, it was kind of like, as soon as I actually put the effort in and like was using those tools, that helped. So anyway, I don't know, Andrea, do you have anything to add?
You all pretty much nailed it. It's kind of similar to what I would say.
Okay. Is it normal to go through periods where you experience BPD symptoms, or is it just the emotional numbness? Maybe you could expand a little bit on what you mean by
like which symptoms?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I normal to come back because like a lot of the things that are BPD are kind of normal human things. They just like the volume is turned way up. So
yeah.
So I struggle sometimes with knowing like, am I having a resurgence of BPD or am I just like a person having a moment? Like I will not ever know for sure because I'll never be somebody who didn't have BPD, right? So to me that sounds pretty like having some of that come back at points seems like that would be a pretty normal experience. But I'm not sure why the or is emotional numbness. So maybe if you can expand on that, we can give more to that. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff going through here. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so whoever asked that question, if you can expand. Oh, what are your favorite foods? Ariel, hello. Andrea, why don't you go first?
Chicken wings. I'm obsessed with wings. I love wings. Yeah. I would say that's my favorite food.
I love how there was no hesitation. She's just like, chicken wings!
Chicken wings. I'm sure there's more. Off the top of my head, it's chicken wings.
Karis?
I'm just reading the updated question and I'm like, oh, I get it. And yeah, I know what I'm gonna say. But yeah, food. I really have like comfort foods, but I also really enjoy just all kinds of foods, and I love trying new things as well. So I feel like if I give one answer, the other foods will be sad.
Aw.
So,
Well, I have the superstition that everything with a face is sentient, so you know, I get you.
yeah.
Like I can't leave. Like I literally bought a stuffed animal a few days ago because I felt like it was looking at me and asking me to save it, and I was like, I know this is not real. It's not even a hallucination. It's just a very active imagination. But anyway,
So,
all right.
favorite foods. I love ice cream, and like all the foods.
All foods.
All foods.
I would probably normally have a different answer, but right now, egg drop soup is my jam.
Yeah.
Because my throat. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll go back to the question. We got our. Is it normal to go through periods where you don't experience BPD symptoms, or is it just emotional numbness? It makes me question if I'm just magically getting better, or even if I ever had BPD. Oh, so it's not having the symptoms. It's not the presence of them. It's the absence.
I feel like for me, like it's super dependent on what I'm going through in my life. So if I'm going through like a stressful phase at work, or if one of my like family relationships is strained, or even if I like when the time changes and like the clocks go back an hour, it takes me a really long time to adjust to that, because like at least here in Ontario, like it gets dark really, really early. Like I don't leave the house and it be daylight. Like I leave the house, I go to work, it's dark. When I come home, it's dark.
Weird.
Yeah. So like I don't, I'm so sorry. My ADHD just scrolled my answer, and
no, it's good. I'll reread the question.
very often.
Is it normal to go through periods where you don't experience BPD symptoms?
So I'm like going through that time change thing, it takes me a really long time to recover from that. So like, I'll find that my BPD symptoms are typically worse, I guess. Like I have more of like the problematic BPD symptoms during those times, or if I'm sick, or if there's like some underlying issue that maybe isn't at the forefront of my mind, I'll notice that like I have more symptoms. But if everything in my life is like going decent, then I'm usually able to skillfully keep them at bay. So I think if we're living lives that are according to our values, and we're not going to be as symptomatic, I think we are kind of magically getting better. And we had BPD for real.
I like that, because I've started to learn more and more, even as I've gotten older, like my environment matters. So if I'm, just doing better, if I'm keeping a healthy environment, then yes, I do have moments, but if I'm in a negative environment, like my flare-ups are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just there. Yes.
Well, Lena always says, BPD is developed and maintained in relationships. So that, that kind of tells you a little bit that it's very context dependent, right? It's not like, I think it's interesting when people paint a picture of BPD as if like these symptoms come out all the time in any and all contexts, right? It's like, no, it's not always the same for each person, but each of us has specific contexts that will set those things off. It's not random.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say that probably depending on the context, you could be experiencing emotional numbness, but you could also just not be in a context that sets off the symptoms. That's always a possibility. Why does it take so long for an underage diagnosis? Because it took 1.5 years for me to get it, and I'm 17. I I can repeat what I've said. This is what I've heard from others. Because again, we're not doctors, but what I have heard is often that people don't like to diagnose underage because they claim that your personality is still developing, and so therefore it's hard to tell what is like a disorder and what is just puberty. I think my personal opinion, I was diagnosed at 15, so like it does happen. I think if you understand, for a lot of disorders, if you understand them well, you can identify them. Alex is our, let's see, I'm jumping all over the place too, but Alex is our clinical psychologist in training, basically, and I think she said something like early adolescence is the earliest they've been able to reliably identify BPD. So it is possible, but it's just hard because not a lot of people want to do it. My guess is there may be some liability involved, but don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure. We keep getting into territory that's really not our wheelhouse. Okay, tips for dealing with self-harm.
Oh gosh, that one takes a lot of practice. I feel like everybody's road with that is so different. It's hard to give just straightforward advice. For me, well, I have a little bit of a different story. Not everybody has vitiligo. So the more that I have the wrist right here. So the more that the spot started to grow, the more it was like, this is what you're doing. Look at the trauma that you're causing to your skin. So I think for me, that was kind of like where I needed to find other ways to cope. And for me, that was through art, like just kind of going ham on that. Just kind of like, even if I'm not even very good at it, like I just needed to busy my hands with something different. And I'm only just recently getting better with that. I'm 41 now. So it does take a lot of time, but it's worth it. Like you just have to put the work in it.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, so your self-harm basically caused your vitiligo spot to grow, and that was sort of like
well, it wasn't always like that, but I had done something to myself where it really lowered my immune system. It's an autoimmune disease. So during that time, the spot just started forming. I thought it was really weird because it was like, well, why do I have a spot on this wrist but not this wrist? So when the dermatologist broke it down for me, she was like, your skin is responding to the trauma that you're causing. That's why it keeps growing, because you won't stop this behavior. And it only kind of continued. So to make it stop, I had to stop. Yeah. And also I think my self-worth started to, not to say that others don't have self-worth, but for me, my self-worth was really low. So stopping that behavior was necessary. If I really liked myself, I probably wouldn't do that, even if I was using it to cope. For me.
What's the verdict on DV said, what's the verdict on the opinion tattoos replacing self-harm? Oh, on the opinion tattoos replacing self-harm.
Whose opinion? My opinion? Because I love it.
What opinion, like, is it like
getting a tattoo to feel pain?
Or
yeah.
Dead.
Okay.
I can't deny that I haven't gone to the person that I get tattoos from, which would be DB, and say jokingly, I wish you were available today because I probably wouldn't have done this or something, not that it's a funny thing, but just to kind of bring humor to it. I am guilty of saying stuff like that because, well, I'd rather get a tattoo than do this. But I don't think that way anymore, So even like with the cover up that she did, it was kind of like, I felt like I earned it because I'm okay with most of my white spots, but that one was a reminder of what I used to do.
So you had to not engage in self-harm for a certain amount of time before you could get that tattoo, right?
She would not. She was like, I'm not going to do it. Not, you need to stop for a period of time. So, and then she didn't ask me about it. I was telling her like, hey, I think I'm done. I think I'm ready. She was like, okay, I think you are too. So, and then the other end to that is that if I was to do something again, she's not going to retouch it or do anything to it. She's like, I'm done. So, lesson learned.
Yeah.
All right, we got another one. I'm afraid of meeting a possible partner. The fact that I might not be the same lovely person all the time terrifies me. Have you experienced this? How do you overcome the idea of I don't want to hurt?
Those are two separate questions? I feel like.
Go. Well, answer whichever part you feel like.
All right. So,
You
like,
got.
first part about like being worried about not being the same person all the time for your partner. That is me to a T. I had to just accept that that's me and that's who I am. And there, I decided when I started looking for a serious life partner again, right before actually I met my current partner, Jeremy. I decided that when I met somebody, I was going to just like huge info dump all of my issues on the first date. And if it scared him off, then good. I didn't need him anymore. If he stuck around, then he's at least interested in me enough to wonder what's coming next and to see like if it's playing out and get a little bit more like normal, or like if every single time it's going to be like a whole bunch of stuff. But I figure, you know, I'm not an easy person to live with. I am a very difficult person to live with. I know that. So, I mean, if he thinks it's going to be easy in the beginning and then I like gradually into him into like some kind of like crazy torture and he's wondering what in the world happened, I think that that's unfair to both of us. So for me to feel like I'm being genuine and meeting somebody who knows what they're getting into, it's important for me to let them know what it all is. It was actually really cool because like, aw, thanks. It was really cool because like our first date, I like told him all this stuff. Our second date, he came with a list of questions. He actually had researched BPD. He wanted to know which symptoms like were the ones that like I had challenges with, how often I was bothered by them, when I was bothered by them, what that manifested as, like what that looked like in my behavior, because he needed to know what he was like coming into. There were a certain couple of things that we talked about that were non-negotiables for him. He was just like, if this is one of your things, then like this is early stages. I just rather duck out. Like it's only date 2. There's no big feelings yet. And so we just talked through the whole thing. And at the end of that, he was like, yeah, let's give this a go.
So what I hear when you're saying that is you basically developed healthy boundaries from the start.
Yeah.
Like saying, this is what I need. This is what this looks like. Well, because they're asking you like, okay, so this is what she's telling me. So I want to know more about it. So that way I can make sure this is what I'm in for. And this isn't for me. This didn't happen to me, but I've recently seen a relationship where, you know, the boyfriend knew a lot about what was going on. And so what he did was he went and took a DBT course because he wanted to know. And I know that that's not available for everybody. He so happens to be in an industry where he can do that. But I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like even there's DBT books out there if you want to know more about your partner and just how to help, with dysregulation and stuff. There's a lot of information out there.
Jeremy actually signed up for a high conflict couples DBT group with me. And at first he was kind of hesitant because he's like, well, we're not a high conflict couple. And I'm like, well, we're not a high conflict couple all the time, but that if like we have the potential for things to get very large, but we just have a lot of control and respect for one another, so we don't allow it to happen. But like, wouldn't it be cool if we could learn skills together that keep it from ever getting like that? And so he was like, absolutely, that makes total sense, I'm in. So I mean, I think it's about like communication with your partner and vulnerability, because if you're on the same team, they need to know what your vulnerabilities are so that they can help you, just like you need to know what their vulnerabilities are so you can help them.
Yeah, I think I had a sort of a similar approach. No, I don't know if I was a little bit different in the sense that I used to be like, here's all the information, can you handle me? And instead of being like, here's all of it, it was like, I tried to go at like I don't know, what seemed to me like a reasonable pace, but also not holding anything back. Like where it came up naturally in conversation, it's like, I'm not going to hide stuff to make myself seem more put together than I feel like I am, or like and actually that's one of the things that my husband said to me after we got together, that like he appreciated my honesty. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the reasons why he liked me. So, I don't think it makes sense, I don't think it makes sense to like hide all the stuff, because if it's going to turn into something later, like you don't want to surprise somebody, right. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'd advocate for always telling people on the first date, because depending on where you live and what your contexts are, it may not always be safe to give people that much information up front, right? So just be mindful of that, of what your situation is, and don't give people too much information in the upfront if you don't have a way to protect yourself. But where you can, it can be a useful tool to find the people who want to stick around. All right, setting New Year's resolutions and BPD. Do you guys set fun ones or easier to achieve ones? I don't set New Year's resolutions.
I don't either. Because I can't commit to them.
I think usually around the new year, I'll think about the last year and sort of like the things that I learned and what I might want to do differently moving forwards. But I feel like I'm doing that in a much smaller way, like all the time. Like, how did the last week go? Whenever I get to Friday, I'm like, what did I do this week? Like, what am I going to do different next week? I think taking the pressure off of it and not really having like some big thing is how I deal with it.
Having resolutions all year. Yeah.
I find like anytime I hit a snag, that's when I try to figure out how to do it differently next time. So like I guess I'm just always like you guys, like I don't know, I'm just always doing I think if I try to do it as a New Year's resolution, it will like automatically mean that it's not gonna happen. Like I don't know.
Yeesh.
The oppositional defiance or whatever that is. Like yeah.
All right. How do you self-regulate? That's the whole question, isn't it? DBT. That's how I self-regulate. It's just, there's a lot to, I guess one nugget I'll give that's like maybe not specifically in DBT, but like I have conversations with myself. I'll remove myself from a situation and straight up just talk to myself. Like, I'll play both my like emotional BPD self, or as DBT would call it, like the emotion mind, and I'll play like my wise mind, and sometimes, which is like your higher self. And sometimes I went to acting school once, yeah, back in the day. So like for me, like I created characters to like embody these different parts of me, and like we'll just straight up have conversations. I have a friend who calls them personal staff meetings. I have personal staff meetings, and that is one of the ways that I regulate my emotions, is just by literally having a personal staff meeting about it.
That's cute. I guess for me, like if I'm upset.
It's such a big question, I know.
Yeah, so I'll just base it off different emotions. So if I'm upset, it's taken a little bit, but I learned to walk away. If I'm getting sad, the tears are coming, and maybe I'm taking it out on a situation, I have to step back and I'd be like, what's really causing this? Is it really this, or is it something deeper than that? So it really just depends on the emotion, how I'm going to regulate myself versus just popping off on whatever emotion's going on.
I like to do a lot of regulation beforehand. So like looking after my needs, looking after my rest, that like the please skill in DBT. But it basically centers around looking, like doing like a scan of your mindset and your body, and if you're missing out on anything that you need for success. And then, so like make sure I get enough sleep, water, food. I'm like not drinking caffeine after a certain time of day. Like last night, I had a client who offered me coffee, and it was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was like, yeah, that'd be great, it smelled so good. And I was like, sure, they were making it in their house, and so I had some. And then last night I was not acting super, like when it got to like around bedtime, we did have a couple of misunderstandings, and so like I look back at that, I'm like, crap, I should have just, like, I know better. So like normally I look out for it like ahead of time, and
I like that.
Worry so much in the moment on how to react, because like I'm learning. Eventually I'm 45 years old, and I'm like finally figuring out that like if I'm hungry, I get unreasonable.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know totally the order, but here's another one. Any tips to become more disciplined? Ooh, I feel like
figure it out. Let me know.
I feel like this is a
consequences, like natural life consequences.
Yeah, I think that was hard for me. I don't know if you, Karis, experience this as someone who also has ADHD, but I feel like for me, one of the biggest problems that ADHD causes is it disconnects me from the consequences of my actions. Is I don't feel like I'm kind of following my impulses, and I'm not really connected to, oh, what's going to happen when I do this. And so like, this is one way in which mindfulness that I learned in DBT has actually helped me, not always I'm not always able to stop myself from being impulsive with my ADHD, but I can sometimes direct it I can point it in a different direction, because I will think about, because I'll be able to think more about the long-term consequences of my behavior. I think it's hard though. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Like, I think for me, things like having like gone into debt, or like you get a promotional rate on something and you sign up for the thing, and then okay, so I did this balance transfer from a credit card, and it's like you get like 1% interest on any balance transfer for like whatever, however long time. But like, if you're ever late for a payment, even once, even if you're like 30 seconds late for the payment, even once, it like jumps up to 12% forever. And there's nothing you can do about it. And it's like, wait, what? So, you know, I get like caught in things like that. So, I mean, I don't like getting burned. It really like makes me mad. Like it pisses me right off. So like, I felt like I got burned by the credit card company, and I like take it personally now. It's like a vendetta that I will never get caught by one of those things again. So I guess it's my like stubbornness and my dislike for negative consequences that has forced me to develop routines that keep me more disciplined. But I'm 45 and it's starting to work. So just have patience with yourself. Like if you're in your 20s or you're in your teens, even if you're in your 30s, it's fine if it's not figured out yet. Like give yourself time and patience, because like it's hard. It sounds easy, and it probably is for some people, but for some of us,
Yeah, I think we get intimidated because we see other people that seem so disciplined. So it's just like, well, if they're doing it, I can do it too. But like I've taken this behavioral change course, and it's super just short, and it's supposed to be like a 4-week long course, and it's actually not that simple to create discipline if you're not used to it. So I don't know, it's really interesting to learn about. It's like some people can really just do it, and some people really need to practice it.
It's kind of like everything else, right? Like you're not inherently born with knowing how to do all the things.
Yeah.
Some things you're taught by your social like situation growing up, and some things have to be learned intentionally.
Yeah.
Is the dog loud? Okay.
I mean a little bit, but it's not. It's in this context. It's fun. It's like
Okay.
we hear the dogs talking. Any tips on not splitting randomly? I mean, sorry, I mean, seriously, sometimes I just wake up one day hating someone's guts without them actually triggering me. Is this something that can be avoided somehow? I would say it's not random. Just because it feels random, it isn't. Because all emotional reactions are caused by something. We just don't always know what they are. I mean, sometimes it's a dream. You know, I have woken up angry at my husband for leaving me in a dream.
Oh.
You know, like, and even though I rationally understand that he did not do any of that, like, I still feel upset. And, you know, like Karis was saying earlier, she either doesn't dream or doesn't remember them, right? So, who knows? Maybe there have been times I've woken up feeling kind of pissed at him. Maybe it was one of those nights I was having one of those dreams, right? So there is always a cause, we just don't always know what it is. And I think that sort of knowledge has helped me, not because I always am going to know what the cause is, but because I can be sure that there always is one. And this is, I mean, a lot of it for me is just the pre-regulation that like Karis mentioned earlier, like preparing. I try to do things to like reduce my vulnerability factors. People talk about this all the time, and I mean, I think if you're in your 20s, it may not be as noticeable, but now that I'm in my 30s, sleep. If I don't sleep enough, I'm a bitch. Straight up. Like, I will split at the drop of a hat. I am not nice. I can admit that. I have to work really hard to rein it in if I don't get any sleep. And so that's one thing that I feel like, you know, it's not gonna, you know, none of those things like sleep, diet, exercise, none of those things are gonna like cure your BPD, but a lot of those things can really mitigate some of the seemingly random emotional swings. because sometimes it's just like your body is out of whack, and it's your body trying to tell you like, hey, I don't feel okay, please take care of me.
It's kind of like what you were saying, Karis, about the please skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have anyone else have thoughts about random splitting?
I have random splitting. I know exactly where mine comes from, and that's that happened once I started to be like really honest with myself, that I was getting annoyed at ridiculous.
Well, that self-honesty, that's probably a big one. It's like a lot of it seems random, and I mean, I don't know whoever asked this, like this may not be a thing for you, but for me a lot of it is I don't want to admit to myself some of the things because they're uncomfortable.
So I'm just gonna go with a fun anecdote from my relationship with Jeremy. So one of the first times that he stayed over at my house, he used the wrong towel. So I don't know if any of you guys have the right towels and the wrong towels at your homes, or if you've been in houses where somebody has like the fancy towel that like it only just like hangs there, and then there's the one that like you actually use to dry your body off and like hang it. So he used like the fancy one, and then he like put some in the wrong spot. I think he like accidentally left his shampoo in there, and I was like, it's an anchor. And I like panicked, and I called one of my friends, and I'm like, oh my god, like all these horrible things, like he's gotta go, there's no way, like and this friend of mine was like, Karis, you just yesterday were saying all of these amazing things about him, and like he leaves shampoo in your shower and uses the wrong towel. Did you tell him which towel he could use? And I'm like, no, but he should have been able to figure it out. And he's like, really? And I'm like, okay, maybe not. But like, I was terrified because I did not want to get my heart broken. And it seemed like I had actually met a really good guy. So my brain was overactively looking for and creating red flags because it couldn't believe that this was true and that like I actually deserved somebody who seemed at this early stage in our relationship to care so much. So like once I was honest with myself and I had a trusted person to run these things past, like we call it a trusted other, or like somebody, like if you don't have access to rational thinking and you're like, okay, I trust this person, they usually think rationally and we usually fine, call that person, run it past them. Listen, this, like I'm feeling this way about this person and I don't want to feel this way about them, but I do, like, let's figure it out. And like once I kind of talked myself out of it, then I hadn't split on him anymore. He didn't need to go. We had a great conversation about the towels and the shampoo, which was entirely accidental. He looked for it once he got home and realized he didn't have it. He was like, oh man. But like, so I don't think it's, I'm rambling again, but no, Zanny, like, I agree. I don't see it as
Random.
Random. No, not at all. No.
Okay, let's see. There was another one. Oh, well, first off, what is DBT? And then what DBT skills do you use the most? So for anyone who doesn't know, DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. Until relatively recently, it was considered like the gold standard for treating borderline personality disorder, although there are a bunch now. And we have a video on our channel about like I think it was like 4 or 5, if not more, different modalities mentioned. The dog is like, you're not going to share this information. This is a trade secret. Trade secrets.
They're barking at a possum. I know this. I can tell.
Don't share the trade secrets. But the three of us have done DBT, and it's sort of focused on the concept of dialectics, which is sort of holding two seemingly opposing truths as equal. For example, I am doing the best I can, and I can do better. That's kind of the fundamental idea of DBT. And so it can be especially helpful for those who are experiencing high externalizing behaviors and who are, very self-harming or suicidal. And if you really struggle with splitting, DBT can be helpful because it's sort of the whole idea is balancing it out. But there are a bunch of others. I think my favorite DBT skill, which one do I use the most? Probably use mindfulness the most. I hated it at first. I really hated it. I thought it was woo-woo and dumb. But really mindfulness is just the act of attentionally paying attention to your life. Yeah. And as it turns out, I wasn't paying that close attention. When I started paying closer attention, I noticed that I had a lot more control than I thought I did. It's just, it's hard. If you think about it, who wants to pay that close attention when your emotions are so intense? Like, it feels like a lot. You're just like, ugh, why do I have to sift through all of this garbage? But actually, once you do, you're like, oh, I can do a lot more with this. What I thought was a pile of garbage, it's not actually. It's a bunch of different things that I can, look at and move around and do stuff with. And I find that when I am generally more mindful, I can handle a lot of things better. Like, I split less frequently, and like when somebody says something that gives me a strong negative emotional reaction, I can stand there and I can work through what I'm thinking. So that's probably the one I use the most. But my favorite is the tip skill, because there's nothing like hacking your biology. And the tip skill the particular tip skill I'm thinking of is putting your face in a bowl of cold water. Takes advantage of the mammalian diving reflex, which lowers your heart rate. And it's great for when things are
blood into your vital organs, brain and heart and lungs as well at the same time. So it forces your brain to start working in a more effective way. So like all the blood, it's so cool. It's really,
yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know how to do this, you fill up a bowl of cold water, as cold as you can stand it. Without it like being literally full of ice. I usually put like a couple pieces of ice and then cold water, and then I hold my breath and stick my face horizontally in it for like 30 seconds if I can. And obviously that's not something you can do when you're out that easily. My therapist, when I've been in her office in the past, she's given me 2 cold cans of Coke to put on my cheeks, and I bend over and hold my breath. It doesn't work exactly the same way because part of it is when the water goes into your nose, but it sort of helps to replicate that a little bit. Not up your nose, just in the inside of your nostril. By the way, don't breathe in. Yeah, no, don't do that.
That was one of the ones that was the hardest for me to accept, because I was just like, if I'm pissed off, you want me to stop and put cold water? It really irritated me. But this was kind of like during the time where I was like, DBT sucks. I wasn't having it. But I think one of my favorite things I like to use is, I don't know if it would really be considered a skill, but I loved using Dear Man, trying to figure out how to communicate. Yeah, like that. It never worked in my favor, but it didn't always work in my favor, but it made it easier for me to like talk about, just things that I was like expressing and feeling and all that stuff. It just made it easier. Karis is paused. Is she paused on your side too?
Yeah. Was that? Did I do something? I don't think so. She might just be having some.
It's a cute face, though.
Yeah. She's smiling.
Oh, opposite action.
She must have run out of juice or something.
Huh.
Opposite action is good too. That one's hard. So opposite action, for those who don't know, is basically exactly how it sounds. It's doing opposite to how you feel. So like I use that a lot when I'm depressed because I want to isolate, and so instead of isolating, I go force myself to do things with people.
Yeah.
Helps keep stuff at bay. I mean, that's really it. How do you usually use it, Andrea?
I only recently started using it. But as far as like if I'm getting this anxious feeling about going into the grocery store when there's always going to be people there, I can't avoid that, and I can't always order online because that's always been everybody else's solution. Just letting myself know there's always going to be people here. Just let it go in there, come on out. Or like avoiding being angry in traffic. There's always going to be traffic. It's going to be okay. Just, go through it. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So there was a whole discussion about therapy. It's hard to find a good therapist, basically was the consensus. In your experience, Andrea, how hard was it for you to find a good therapist?
I think when I first started therapy, I was kind of getting like whatever they had available. There she is. We're talking about therapists and how we came across. What was it? How we came across good ones?
Yeah, because there was a whole discussion about how a lot of people have had experiences with therapists that were just felt like they were just following sort of a textbook and not really caring about the individual and just kind of like phoning it in.
Yeah.
I'll say I've probably seen more crappy therapists than good ones. I will admit that.
Yeah. I actually just lost a really good, I didn't lose her, but she went off and got married, so she moved. And I was like, dang. But then I was kind of like, you know what? I think I got what I needed from her, so it's okay. But I do miss her. She was really good. But yeah, when I first started, it was like a lot of I'm sorry, because I started saying this and I forgot. No, when I first started, I was kind of getting just like, oh, you need a therapist? Here you go. This is what we've got. Do they, offer what you require? We don't know, but do you want one or not? So that was kind of like, yeah.
My first therapist, I had from like when I was in high school up until like last year. And my needs changed. And as I continue to get more and more diagnostic clarification, I learn that there are certain types of treatments and certain therapies that are better for me, and that would be more effective. Where I still very much respect this person and value the therapy and like the journey that we were on like for such a long time. Also, she's not at this point in her career going to decide to pursue a specialization in something that, do you know what I mean? So like I think like you were saying, Andrea, like I got what I needed from her, and it was time for me to move on and find somebody else. And I just actually started seeing a new therapist. I'm going to be seeing her for the third time on Friday, and I found her by a referral. So I have a friend who has made just an amazing amount of progress like with her mental health. And so I asked her and I said, do you still see a therapist? And she goes, yeah. And I said, would you recommend like her or anybody in her clinic? And so I phoned the clinic and I had a really great conversation with the receptionist. I disclosed some of the things that I wanted to work on. The receptionist guided me towards, like, I was vulnerable with the receptionist, you know, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I know that these are my issues and I am looking for a new therapist, and like, help, please help. And she was like, okay. So like, she talked about like the different things that were available at that clinic and said I could come in and like go through their website, whatever. And it was cool. So I think referral is really powerful. Like if you have
Yeah.
somebody that you trust. But like everybody's personality is different. So I mean, you may not mesh with someone and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you also have
Chemistry.
permission to fire your therapist.
There's something to be said for chemistry. I have had the same therapist for the last 7 years. Shout out to Felice. The BPD bunch would not exist if it weren't for you. So, woo! Thank you. But before that, gosh, it was kind of like being on a bajillion horrible first dates, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely a challenge, and it's hard too, because, you know, I mean, people get pretty, I mean, all I have is an undergraduate degree in psychology, and even I experience this sometimes. You get attached to your education and what you think you know, and it becomes hard sometimes when you're dealing with real people. Not that I work in a clinical sense, but, you know, like, you think you learn something in a book and you try to see it in the world, and then sometimes you're not really seeing the world, you're projecting your image of what you think you learned in school onto people, and that's hard. So, you know, it's not like I think all of them were trash, like, intentionally, right? Like, it's work to try to figure out how to balance what you learn in school and how to treat individuals. And I recognize that is, that's hard. And we technically don't have time for, but somebody asked us this question a little while ago, and I want to make sure we get to this one. What's your worst coping mechanism you find yourself still using at times, like still falling back on? I'm assuming this is like not the best, not the most helpful. So I actually don't think this is that bad. And it's funny because I just mentioned earlier, like, lack of sleep is not good for me, but hear me out. Harm reduction, I think, has been something that's sort of important for me. So I have tended to engage in really impulsive, self-destructive behaviors, like going out with a bunch of strangers and getting plastered, and then waking up somewhere I don't recognize, with half of my belongings missing, you know, like, and that being a regular occurrence. And sometimes it was just feeling like I needed to rebel against, sometimes it was stuff that other people did. It was like this strange thing to do. Anyway, so sometimes what I will do is I will engage in like rebellion of a smaller scale. My husband is bringing me orange juice like the angel that he is, because my throat is dying. Thank you.
Crashing the stream. Hello.
So thank you. But so, like, sometimes I'll stay up a few hours later than I know I should because I want to indulge that rebellious urge somehow, but in a way that is not gonna land me half a city over with my wallet missing, you know, and puking into some rando's toilet. So that's what I do. I sort of intentionally engage in like reduced forms of rebellion, which I think is actually a thing, but I can't remember what it's called.
I agree. It's a thing, and I can't remember what it's called.
Sick brain. Why? Sick brain. Why?
Well, I think the funny thing about it is, like, when I'm listening to you, Zanny, I'm kind of like, that sounds like so much fun. You know, because it's just like the rebellion part. Because, yeah, like the impulsivity, like sometimes the things that we do, it can be fun, but it can lead us into dangerous situations. So when you minimize it, even just hearing about it for me, I'm just like, yes, little rebellion. Yay. It sounds fun.
Little mini rebellions.
That's so bad.
I speed.
Like literally?
And I drive recklessly in controlled situations. So, I work in construction, and so sometimes I have access to roads that are not assumed by the city yet. And so like if I want to like go like 3 blocks away and do it in reverse on the wrong side of the road, why not? Like there's nobody else on there except for the machine operator, and like we always look out for each other anyway. Like we make eye contact while we're driving around one another, and like, you know, it's like those professional driver like closed course disclaimers that they used to have like on commercials when people used to watch commercials. Do people watch commercials anymore? I don't know.
It's more like random ads.
Right? Yeah, random ads. Okay, so it's like professional driver closed course. Oh, I see a safety officer just joined on the chat. I'm okay. I cannot disclose too much more. Nisa might rat me out. But yeah. So like I do like if I want to, sometimes if the road is empty and I know like the speed limit is posted, whatever. There's no rule at how quickly I can get to the speed limit. Like, if I accelerate like really hard, I will get the feel of speeding, the feel of reckless driving, but I still only go up to the speed limit and then I just like slow right down. Like, and I coast at the speed limit, but I do these things. So like, I still get that like rush and, yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, I just have this image of you just like cool driving in a sports car, like through a tunnel at night. And I'm just like, Kara seems so cool.
I do that in my pickup truck. And I like when it's snowing, I love the look of the snow in the headlights. And that's when I am tempted to drive the fastest because it looks like Star Trek. Like the stars just like, and like I'm in a spaceship, like, yeah. So it's like I get to feel, I don't know, it's fun. Like I get that big rush. Like I know in my more problematic behavior days, I was challenged by drinking and driving. I never got caught, but that was something that in the past I did. And the feel of that, like of the warp speed, that's it. Yeah. The feel of that like rush that you get, like the G-forces, it felt like I was on a roller coaster. And like, it was just like a lot of fun to just go really fast. And so I still like, I do that, but like in a controlled way and sober. Yeah.
Andrea, what's your answer to the
my
question?
rebellion?
Yeah, or what sort of coping mechanism that is maybe not the absolute best do you still fall back on sometimes? Or if you engage in mini rebellions, what's your mini rebellion?
Well, I too like to speed when I'm upset though. So I wouldn't say it's controlled. I have a really bad habit of when I'm upset to do the texting thing, whether it's the texting or the, you don't want to hear me out, I'm on the way. I'm going to say it to your face. I have grown a lot.
Yeah, I know she has. She used to call me and be like, that didn't
I went over
there. So great.
I have grown a lot from that. But so it would start off with the texting and then it would go into the calling and then it would be like, fine, I'm on the way. And then it would be the reckless driving on the way. And then it would be the denial while I'm there. And then the skills would come in and be like, okay, I got to calm down. what is the reason? I've got to chill out, take a break, go home, that kind of thing. So it's like a really intense pattern of that behavior, but I have grown a lot. But if there's anything that I get disappointed in myself, I'm just like, I did it again. Why'd I do that? But the texting will be less, the calls will be less, the drive will be smoother, the knocks will be less. Like, or I won't even go to the door.
Down a notch, bit by bit.
Yeah.
Well, we are at time. I noticed there were a couple of people who were leaving comments that were people are having a hard time. So I just want to say that I know that having BPD sometimes really sucks. And I can't guarantee that like your life is just gonna get easier because I don't know your context, but I do believe that it's possible for everyone.
I know that statistically, BPD symptoms lessen as we get older.
Yeah.
And it gets less hard. So hang in as long as you possibly can.
I always told myself I just need to make it to 25. And it turned out that was pretty much true. When I was a teenager in my early 20s, I thought my own heart was going to kill me. And then a lot of the things that people tried to tell me, it's not like I discovered DBT and it was like totally revolutionary. A lot of it was stuff that people had already been trying to tell me, but it was delivered in a way and at a time when I was able to actually do something about it. And being a little bit older really did make a difference. That's not to say it's like that for everyone. Obviously everyone has a different situation, but Kara's right. Statistically, it does get a little bit easier as you get older. So
I think maybe because we have more experience of like really screwing stuff up. And maybe going back to like what I was saying, like towards the beginning of the live, like how much I hate having to deal with negative consequences. So like eventually, no matter how much our brains are not wired to do it naturally, our actual distaste for suffering means that our brains will start to figure some stuff out just naturally.
Yeah.
The longer we live, the more experiences we have, the more our brains start to adapt to make our lives better, because our brain is always doing what it thinks it needs to make our lives better.
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday, my therapist called me an optimist, and I was kind of stunned because I was like, "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" But I guess it's funny because I guess a lot changes. You don't always notice it, but it's like I guess I am now. I definitely definitely would not have said that 10 years ago.
I said that on our new video for season 3. I was like, I'm significantly happier now. And I could not have imagined saying that when I first started this. Like, I was always like, I'm just the queen of having a little rain cloud over my head. And I still have the cloud, but there's no rain. And I mean, I do feel significantly happier, but that doesn't mean I don't have bad days. Huh?
The cloud is keeping you from getting sunburnt.
Yeah, I like that because I don't need to get sunburned.
No, it's a nice shade cloud.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone so much for watching. We'll have one live on Sunday on our YouTube, and then we'll be back next Wednesday for another one. So
wait. How do you do that?
What?
Did you see that, Xander?
Does this like automatically do the thing? What is it?
Why is mine not doing it?
Andrea!
I don't know, but I like it.
That's so cool.
That was fun.
Aw. I mean, it did it.
Why is it not? Maybe it's just yours. I don't know.
No, just did it with Karis. Maybe you just got to keep it up there.
You have to hold it longer. You have to be patient. It doesn't like people with ADHD.
This is not I'm like,
It's really not happening.
my idea. I'm like, okay, I'm done. That was
There you
too
go.
much.
One more time.
That's so fun.
I don't know why it's not working for me, but hey.
Maybe put it over your shirt.
Yeah, the contrast.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I think we're gonna bore people to death with us trying to get the hearts to work. So anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching. We will see you next time.
Ta-da.
Bye.
Bye.